Hello, everyone. Welcome to my podcast. I am Marcela Mores, and I was going to do a special interview today with a really good friend. Hope everybody's enjoying the holidays, the Easter holidays. As I mentioned before, I'm originally from Havana, Cuba, so we didn't grow up at my time. I was born in '82. We didn't grow up with this kind of traditions because well, we had different things going on in our culture. And I just wanted to let you know that at the beginning of this year, I did a 1 minute clip announcing the podcast and saying that I was going to do a little introduction and talk a little bit about myself and how where I come from, originally from Havana, Cuba, and how I moved to what was the connection to come to Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. And well, that life got in the way, and I kept thinking about doing it, and it took me a little longer than anticipated to start doing the podcast. But if you start thinking sometimes too much about how oh, I want to do this, but it gets in the way, or I'm not ready yet. I just said, you know what, you have to just go for it and start doing it. And I look forward to continue to grow the channel, and that just to learn along this journey. And that's why I'm always saying, please subscribe and provide your feedback, because that helps me to develop as conducting this program, as well as having my guests to provide some feedback in afterwards. So yeah, that premiere is going to be coming hopefully very soon. May have to do some tweaking in the some videos that I want to show that would showcase the music I have done through my life of as an active musician, and it's a lot of fun and a lot of like surprises for people around here, that some of the styles of music that you'll be able to find in Cuba, besides the beauty of the Cuban music, the song, the boleros, with its African influences, the Afro-Cuban music, and all the diversity of genres of music that my home country Cuba is very known of. Anyway, with no further comments, I want to introduce today a friend, a really good friend, and that is originally from South Africa and decided, as myself, to make the journey to Canada like a little bit of ago, a, a, a while ago. So I'll let him do that part of the story. So his name is Khothatso Mokoena. He's originally from South Africa, as I said, and he is a father, really good friend, a hardworking man, and as well as an active member of um, a group here in Nova Scotia that is called Samba Nova, that recreates and celebrates Brazilian music. And he also became a DJ. So please welcome Khothatso. How you doing, my
Hello,
friend?
everybody. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we can hear you perfect.
Happy
What's
Easter,
up?
by the way.
Happy Easter. Yeah, it's a new thing to me, right? But yeah, I'm getting used to it. I've been now about a decade here, probably around well, a third of of the time that you mentioned you've been here. Yeah, man, tell us about yourself. How your hometown, your home country, how you end up coming to Halifax, or to Canada in general. Yeah, just
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, like you say, thank you for the humble introduction there. My name is Khothatso Mokoena, and I hail from the rough streets of Soweto. It's about 30 minutes outside of Johannesburg. Johannesburg is my main city. But what brought me to Canada, my grandmother was raising orphans back home. And there was a Canadian lady that was working for an organization called Oxfam. She went to South Africa to help out with whatever Oxfam organization was involved with. And met my grandmother at a market just by fluke. And she wanted to adopt my cousin. And this lady said to my grandmother, you want to come to Canada and get your granddaughter acquainted to the cold climate? So she came along. She came to Canada in 1990, and she decided to stay. And during the end of apartheid, myself, I was leaving South Africa. I went to school in Lesotho, but I'm from South Africa originally. My parents figured I'll get a better education in Lesotho. Lesotho is the only country in Africa only country in the world actually that's interlocked by another country. So if you look at the map of South Africa, there's a small, tiny little country that's called Lesotho. It's interlocked. So I went to school there and came home on the holidays. And 1992, I finished my grade. We call it matric. I finished my matric, and 1992, my grandmother said, "Why don't you come here?" And it was just on the onset of Mandela being president, so apartheid being abolished. So I grew up in the apartheid era. I can tell you a little bit more about it in person. It's a lot. We can talk all night about that, about my story. I joined my grandmother in 1992 March in Fredericton, New Brunswick. She said, grandson, I don't want you to be wandering the streets of Fredericton. I want you to to go to school initially. So like I said, I already finished my grade 12 in South Africa, but given the time frame that I came in March. So my grandmother said, enroll in high school. So I enrolled in grade 11 because it was March. So I was grade 11 of high school, Fredericton High School in New Brunswick. Did a quarter of grade 11 and grade 12. I graduated 1992 and then decided to apply for university. Since my grandmother didn't want me on the streets, she says, I want you in school. I want you to focus. And it was always a dream of mine growing up. Well, when people ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always said a lawyer.
Astronaut.
No, for me, it was a lawyer. I always liked the law. I guess it was influenced also by the injustice that, how we grew up in South Africa and say, how do I fight injustice? Maybe law is the profession that I want to pursue. Long story short, I went to St. Thomas, did my undergraduate in psychology and sociology. And when I finished my studies, I went to South Africa for a year to visit. I'll put law school on the back burner, so to speak. So I went to visit my family in South Africa, came back, and coming back from home, I decided, maybe let me work for a year. Let me put my studies on hold. Having said that, I started working, and the taste of money. You start seeing dollar signs in your paycheck. You're like, maybe I'll go to school later on. And fast forward, I worked, and then I met a Canadian lady. Well, the mother of my children. She was going to university. Actually, it's a funny story. She was going to school same time as my grandmother. My grandmother went to the same university as I did, but she graduated. They graduated. My mother of my children and my grandmother graduated. My grandmother graduated 2007. My former partner graduated 2006. So they were going to the same university without even knowing each other. So it's, like they say, it's a circle, like life takes a full turn. You never know who you run into. So when we had our first child, she wanted to move to Nova Scotia. She's from Halifax, originally the North End. I say, I left South Africa. What is New Brunswick to Halifax?
Of course.
5 hours. I flew over the ocean. So it means nothing. So we came to Halifax. I settled here and I worked for a company. I started working while we were raising our child. And 11 years later, I realized, I need to go back to school again. But I wasn't thinking law school. I'm like, I'm a practical person. I like working with my hands. So let me apply to an NSCC, plumbing. I'm like, plumbing, huh? Everybody has, plumbing. Every home needs it's a function of a home. So maybe it's a good trade that I get into. I got accepted at NSCC. I graduated 2015 with a plumbing diploma, and I worked for different companies. And it's a journey, like when you from outside, it's always a challenge here to to your network, you have a name like Khothatso Mokoena, and you have an accent on top of that. So that's another barrier, right? So finding the right fit when it comes to trades, it's always a challenge. It's either people are like don't understand what you're saying, a different culture, different way of communicating, things fall apart, and things don't work out in one company. You move on to another one, and you move on to another one, just like that. But the objective here is to never give up, always strive for
Yeah.
success, always believe in yourself. I came here, I left everything that I know in South Africa and came here. So little things, little minor bumps on the road are not going to defeat me. So yeah, that's
Good,
I'm
man.
a father of three girls, 16, 13, and 7. Their birthdays just, it's like, I don't know my
Yeah.
kids. Their
Yeah.
birthdays are
Next year you have to adapt all the numbers again.
I know. But the thing is, like, their birthdays are so close together, and they just turned 16, 13, and 7. I stand to be corrected. So,
That's it.
so there it
It's
is.
it's so interesting because South Africa, you're their main language is official language is English, right?
Actually, South Africa's got 11
No.
official languages.
Oh, 11 official. Okay. All right. Yeah. I
English,
know you got I know in Africa one country has like probably the a lot of like different tribes that they all speak their own like language.
dialect,
I didn't know that 11 languages are official.
11
Wow.
official languages. So try sitting in a South African parliament. You'll be there all day because all those languages have to be translated.
Wow. Wow.
11 official languages, but the business language is English, obviously,
English, correct.
and in Dutch, since we're a Dutch colony and a British colony. So English and Dutch are the primary business languages, so to
Yeah.
speak,
But
if you want to
normally
call it.
everybody speak English
Yeah,
in
yeah,
South
because
Africa. Yeah.
we were taught English in school.
And do you also speak another language, one of your native languages?
Yeah, I speak 7 languages altogether: English, and then 6 African dialects.
Wow. Now, are they considered dialects or languages? Because that's a very complicated linguistic topic. I mean,
Mm.
some people say that the differences in two dialects, it could be perceived as a dialect, or it could be perceived as a different language itself.
Yeah, it's a different language altogether. Coming from,
Mhm.
you see, you have to understand that South Africa is we call it, if you will, a melting pot. So people come to South Africa as workers, migrant workers coming from everywhere. So growing up in the streets of Soweto, you grow up with kids that come from Natal, KwaZulu, Natal, Lesotho, Botswana. So all those mixes, you're playing with friends, like a group of my friends. So we used to call ourselves United Colors of Benetton because it was, if you remember the brand
Yeah.
name Benetton back in the day, it was so we grow up in a circle, and you see somebody speaking a different language, so you have to adapt. It's like sink or swim, right? So
Are you able to communicate between some of them, or are they so different apart that it's
most of them are different apart, but some of them like when you talk about geography, relative to geography, if they're closer to each other, like
yeah.
Botswana and Lesotho. And people from Botswana is a country next to South Africa. People from Botswana and people from South Africa, they can somehow understand each other, even though sometimes there's some words that are more, there's a variance is such
Wow.
yeah.
So you grew up like learning all these languages simultaneously?
Pretty much
Wow.
it was part of one of the curriculum. You have to speak English and then Dutch, which is Afrikaans was a language that was introduced by the Afrikaners, the Dutch settlers. So that language was actually, if you know a little bit about South Africa, 1976 riots. The 1976 riots were uh, after this South African student says, we have our own Bantu languages, which is our native tongues, and then you introduce English, and then English is another barrier. So you introduce another language that's foreign to us. So we either choose English or Dutch. So it was a language that was forced by the the apartheid regime. Because when you think about it, South Africa, like black South Africans, didn't have rights as much as other races. So in South Africa, there's different tribes. There's blacks, coloreds, whites, Indians. So those mainly four. So when you look at let's say you go to fill a Department of Home Affairs, you see black, whites, Indian, colored, and then Trevor Noah. It's funny that you spoke about him. He'd
Yeah.
be considered a colored.
Yes, we were talking about that earlier. I think that's. I was thinking about how can I get Samba Nova a Samba Nova influencer in the program. I was thinking about you, coming from South Africa, having like a parallel story to migrating to Canada as myself, and provide your input also as and your musical influences that you're gonna be telling us about. And then I saw your post on Facebook where you did you post the book that Trevor Noah published like a few years ago.
Mhm.
And yeah, and I've known him for for a little bit less than a year since I discovered him, and I found his like comedy and intellect really brilliant. And yeah, and it's really interesting to learn more about that, how the different racial categories they had in place, and how he speaks about that in his actual stand-up comedy, which you relate that to your life as well back home. Yeah, what how can you relate to Noah's like life's testament?
I can relate that very well, because you have to understand, like me being a black South African during apartheid, I wouldn't be allowed to be married to a white woman. So coming to Canada, having a partner that's white in my country then, 92, was the end of apartheid being eradicated. So when you think about it, my kids are from a mixed race. So that's the book, like the book that Trevor Noah wrote, Born a Crime.
Yeah.
So just to paint a little picture about why it's called Born a Crime, Trevor Noah says it in his stand-up. He says it in his show. During his upbringing, when he was walking in the streets of Johannesburg with his mother, if he saw a policeman come towards him, his mother had to let his hand go, because she'd be prosecuted of having a child of mixed race.
Wow.
That's why the topic, the book is called Born a Crime. So it's one of those things that Born a Crime really means. So to relate to that, not to compare myself with Trevor Noah, that's big shoes to fill there. But in my story, my kids are of a mixed race. So in South Africa, my kids would not be called black. My kids would be called colored.
Interesting.
So colored in the US or in North America, it's black. And then
Yeah.
it's not politically correct to call people colored. So in my country, a colored is somebody like of a mixed race, which is Trevor Noah's case.
A mixed race. Yeah, in Cuba and some Latin American countries, we call it mulatto, right? Which is a term in English too.
Yeah.
And
it's deemed as not a very nice word, right?
where in our country, in Cuba, is kind of like set as the norm.
Yeah.
It's kind of socially accepted. So you mean that back in South Africa or here, that is not deemed as a good word?
Here.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if somebody
Because
was referred to my child as a mulatto, in the North American standard, I'd be really upset. Like, why do you call my child that?
interesting. It's good to learn that. I actually didn't know, because the other thing that we need to understand is that we come from different countries biased by the social norms that where we lived. And well, in Spanish language, the word black is negro. It's just the
Exactly.
word. But
Exactly.
if you in North American, if you pronounce that word, is considered like something very like it's wrong to say,
Derogatory.
right? When I speak Spanish, negro only represents the color. It's just as you guys say, black, right?
Yes.
And it's interesting because there are definitely racial issues in back home, and sometimes we say we have like endearing things to say to. I'm sometimes called negro,
Okay.
but they refer to me because I'm light skin, but they refer to me as I have dark hair. So
Okay.
they call me my negro, my black, right? But
Yeah.
referring to the in my case, referring to the hair, as well as it happens to the black, what is it, what they call black Irish, is
Okay.
the Irish people that have dark hair. And but as an endearing thing, when if you have a friend or a partner that is or that is black, either like a male or a female, we say, oh, mi negro or mi negra. And it is socially accepted within the context of being in Cuba as an endearing thing. Nobody gets offended by that. However, if you change the tone of your voice, that same statement could be, well, no, same statement, because you wouldn't necessarily say my mi negro, right, like my black, but you would change the tone of your voice. If you're being offensive, you would change the phrase a little bit, and that's where that the same word will mean like will have been will be seen as
An
as
offense.
yeah, as an offense.
Yes.
But it's so those are a lot of like a lot of like nuances that we need to be open and understand within cultures, because sometimes the social norms of some countries may uh, what is normal in Cuba is not normal here. So obviously in my journey I've had to adapt. Now I find that it's more interesting and challenging for me to see better how is it how it happened to you when the business, one of the official languages in your country is English, and I do well as a musician. I do have like I have to have like a good ear. I find I find that your the South African accent really rich, interesting, but not not like difficult. Sometimes it's a lot harder for me to understand someone from England, from Scotland, or from Ireland speaking English than someone from your own country.
Mm.
Anyway, just bringing that up. I yeah, no.
No, it's funny. It's funny you say that because, like, when you say, especially going back to the word "my black," like "my negra," right? And then here, when you use the other N word, that it's a very derogatory towards blacks in North America. To me, that word didn't mean anything to me. Like the Nigger,
Yeah,
a derogatory name. It didn't mean anything to me because in South Africa, the whites referred to us as kafir, which is Kaffir. Kafir is it's something equivalent to the N word that is used here, derogatory.
interesting,
Yeah,
interesting.
it's funny. I have a few friends that live here, and I asked a dear friend of mine that's a white South African, and I asked him, I'm like, let's be honest with each other. Back in the day during apartheid, would you have been my friend? And I love the fact that he was very honest and open with me.
Yeah,
And given the climate, given the time, I would never be a friend.
because
Right?
what was he was
A white
white, or he was
person, yes.
a white guy? Okay, I
Yeah. And I
understand.
asked him, I said, we were breaking bread, eating food. South Africans, we love meat. So we're eating meat. And I said, be honest with me. Back in the day in South Africa, would you have been my friend? He says, my family would never like that very much. Right?
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The
So
cultural norms. Hmm.
the cultural norms, but it's for a people to understand each other, we need to talk, right? We
Hmm.
need to talk
Yes.
and sit down and share our differences and say, listen, Mother Africa is Mother Africa. It's always going to be home.
Yeah.
Let's leave that behind. We're here now. Can we embrace our differences? Can we sit down and actually talk about, because this is a different generation. He
Correct.
grew up in a different time. I grew up in a different time. But when we're here, and I send my mom a picture. Like the first time I sent a picture when I came in 1992, my first Canadian girlfriend. When I sent a picture to my friends were like, "Oh, you're gonna get killed, right? You're gonna get shot."
Oh,
It was like, it was not allowed. So what are you doing? Be dating to a different race, but those were the times, right?
yeah,
So
no,
coming here, living here, seeing how things it's one of those things. It's human nature. I don't think it'll ever end. I look at my kids and I pray and hope that my kids will not see color, but it's something that it's unavoidable, and they see it at school. They come to me. One kid didn't want to play with me because they say I'm a different color. I'm like, so what do you do with that information when somebody says I don't want to play or interact with you because you're black or whatever?
interesting.
And I say to them, I say, you know what? Even myself, as your father at work, there's some people that don't agree with me. Not everybody's going to agree with you. When somebody say they don't want to play with you, what do you do? So I asked my daughter, I said, what did you do when another child says they don't want to play with you? She said, I want to play with somebody else. I'm like, simple, problem solved.
Awesome.
Not everybody's going to like you. Treat them with kindness, move on to the next. It's not them, it's not you, it's them.
Yeah. No, it is interesting because definitely there's like well, these kind of racial issues, uh, they take time. I mean, the harm has been done so long ago, but it takes time to demystify that and just to realize that, hey, look at the big picture. What did you
Mhm,
see? You see, I mean, if you raise a drone right now, what do you see? All the heads. You see no color. You see dots, right?
mhm.
That's what we are. We're all reminding. But yeah, I understand that socially it's socially complex to and like incorporate that and enhance that into into our modern societies. And I learned and I sympathize a lot with one of Trevor's like stand-up comedies, where he started talking about how his friend and even his family member wouldn't hang out with him because he was like mixed race,
Mhm.
right? And then and he makes also fun about the accent, like the people from South Africa say,
Yeah,
don't you going to North America, you're going, don't lose your accent. So
yeah,
that
no, that's
that's
one
very
thing
important.
that's one thing that I'm very proud. I'm very, like, if you know me, like you've known me for a while, I'm very patriotic. I have a South African flag on my car. I have a South African flag on my keychain. I have a South African thing on. I'm pro South Africa. It will always be my country, and I have a very soft spot for my country.
Yeah.
They say you can take a boy out of South Africa, but you cannot take the boy out of South Africa. You can take the boy out of South Africa, but you cannot take South Africa outside the boy.
Yeah, he mentions. You mentioned that it's about communication and letting people know. Probably a lot of the times that what keep people like so taken back. I mean, like in different cultures, like harder to accept others, is the fear they believe that another person or group, because they look different, they're going to attack or be somewhat at least that's one of the things that in sociologists explain, and other journalists. There's like this really good very powerful like TED talk. I forgot his name. I can look it up and share it later. But anyway, not to lose time. It's an American man, an American black musician, that he got to interact at the time with with the leader of the Ku Klux Klan in the U.S., and he got to meet him.
Mm,
It's a really fun story, but he was at first when he met him at a hotel. He was like the leader of the Ku Klux Klan was really like impacted to see him, and he just presented himself. Hey, this is me. Let's have a conversation. And there was a little bit of tension at the beginning, but down the road they became really good friends. And in the Ku Klux Klan rallies, he, as a leader, he would appraise this black man as his very valuable friend. And eventually, a few years after he resigned, he realized that the whole thing was like was fake,
yeah.
was not real. And he resigned being the leader of the Ku Klux Klan,
As a
and he
people, right.
continued with growing his friendship with his black friend musician. And I think that that's a really big example, because this man explains that a lot of what happens is fear. We don't know the other person, we don't know the other culture, and that happens. One of Right now, one of my favorite Canadian authors is Malcolm Gladwell. He's a Jamaican British, but uh, radicated in Canada journalist. That he's got like published like many books. I think I have two more to keep up with his work so far.
Mm.
And he mentions in his book, Talking to Strangers. That's one of the things that happens, right? If you don't communicate, then you allow your fears and your demons to take over and give you the wrong answers. And I think in part, there's a systemic issue too, but in part, when it comes to individual, that happens. That has and it's our generation, and the younger generations, I believe, is our job to continue to abolish that, right? And then just make it better.
Like you couldn't have said it any better. It comes from fear. It comes from ignorance.
Yes.
Like the thing that I always, growing up in South Africa, I always, when I look at the history and what happened, it's like, now that I'm a father, now that I would never like. So let's put it this way: back in the day in South Africa, we used to have maids. Like somebody, a lady working in the house for a white family as a servant, and then her husband or another male in the family working as a garden boy, working outside, minding the fields, minding the garden, minding the pool and all that. So as a child growing up, when I saw my relatives going to Johannesburg to go look after these kids that are people, I say, I'm a father. If I'm gonna leave somebody with my children, my most valuable, I consider my children my most valuable commodity. So if I'm gonna leave someone with my kids, I better have love for them. I better have trust for them.
Yeah.
So I always struggle say, so the South African whites didn't like blacks. Not all South Africans, I should make that clear. Some during the apartheid were on our side, some were not. But those that were not still had maids that are black looking after their kids. I'm like, how do you leave somebody that you look as lesser than you to mind the most precious thing
Yeah.
in your life? It didn't make sense. But I was always, a very inquisitive, curious person, and very straightforward with my questions. And then, but those days in South Africa, I had to mind my P's and Q's. I had to be careful what I ask and who I ask.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because you know what happened to Mandela, you know what happened to the political leaders that spoke up against the regime.
Yeah. No,
So,
it's
but now I'm here, I'm free. I can share, which makes it great. Is there's a big South African community here. We meet, we share things, we share barbecues, and it's so nice to be here together and then talk about our history, whether it be good or bad, because history is history.
Mhm. And
But
in
if
your
you put it under the rug and don't want to talk about it, what's the point, right?
and in your friends here, your South African friends here, they're all like all different races.
Mostly whites, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's past. So that's a really good
So
sign that
we
that's
come here,
past.
yeah, it's past. We come here, we celebrate, we laugh about uh, South Africans. We like humor. We make
Yeah,
fun
we
of
do.
ourselves. We like
Here, here.
we make fun of ourselves. We poke fun at ourselves. Like it's there's it's not very, we poke fun at each other. So, and it's nice that now that we're here, we can actually, the South African whites that are here, when I talk to them, they answer my questions very, and I love honesty, because if I'm asking you a question, I say, Marcel, if you were growing up in my country with me, would you have been my friend? And then you say, Khothatso, during the climate, I couldn't have been your friend because my family would have I respect you more, rather than you saying, of course, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course. You cannot ignore the pressure that society puts on you, and the influences from your father, I mean from your parents, what you learned. It's yeah, it's definitely it's how you're coded at the time, right? How so we grew up as kids, and our main influences come from home. And then if our parents are biased by a particular social view or norm or doctrine, that's you can't blame the kids down the road for behaving that way, because that's what they learned at home, and then when they went to school, that's what they learned at school. So that's the judgment is not the solution, it's not the answer, but to communicate, to understand, and just say, okay, that was part of your childhood, but now you can change. We can always change your mind, that you can understand better. This is what we were told before, it was not the right thing. Now this is real now. This is the reality.
Yeah, because there's people that you meet, you myself, I give everyone a benefit of the doubt. I embrace everybody. I come with open arms to introduce myself. I don't judge right away, or I don't judge. Like what I'm saying, what I'm trying to paint the picture here is like, we are who we are. There are people that you like because of where they come from or who they are as a person. There are people that are from your country that you don't want to associate with because of their attitude about outlook on life. There are biases on this and that. You don't agree with them, but we cannot always agree on things. But the beautiful thing about language is to sit down and understand each other's differences.
Beautiful, man. No, absolutely.
Because if we can sit down and get 10 people in one room and share our stories without attacking each other, with listening, with respect, with sharing dialogue, we can come to a better consensus in a sense.
It's very interesting because now you're saying this, you have like a broad and open view of all that, and seeing what you went through with the apartheid in South Africa, but also growing up with all different with all different variations of people, right?
Mhm.
By the way, the term, I have backgrounds in science and in biology, and the reason I say this is because the term race is biologically really uh, let's say controversial. We're only one species, and yeah, there's variations that are the result of adaptations to specific climates and geographies. But anyway, and in fact, in my undergrad thesis, which was a little bit about human variations and illnesses, I didn't use in the thesis, I didn't use the term race because it's biologically speaking, it's very controversial. I used the term human variations, which I found, and the supervisor and myself, I found at the time more appropriate
Mhm.
to describe. But so sometimes I'm tempted to use that term over the term race. But it's because I truly believe that it's really nobody has a problem talking about that with animals and with plants, which is constantly changing. They discover new things and they say, oh no, this is not this species, this is a different one. But it's more like the social weight that, and the background that comes attached to it. Anyway, quick detour. What I meant to say is that you living in that variation, living with like growing up with kids different colors, and everybody's experiencing uh, their own life, whether if they were white or they were mixed color or they were black. uh, I believe that gave you also the openness to embrace the world the way you do today.
Mm.
Sometimes we can take a lot from the suffering, we can learn a lot from that and make it better, make the big changes.
And that's really what made me who I am. Growing up in South Africa, in a place where I was either socially not accepted to enter a space, go into a nightclub, or go into. I'll tell you, when I left South Africa, there was a nightclub called the Base. It was in a very white considered rich area in South Africa, and I've always heard stories about this nightclub. So I went to South Africa to visit post apartheid, and I made myself a promise. I said, I have to go to this nightclub that we were not allowed as blacks. It was in a place called High Point Hillbrow. The nightclub is called the Base. And I got to experience it because during apartheid, I would never be allowed to go to this space.
Wow.
So it's one of those things that, you take advantage of it. It's like, I was not allowed to enter this space. Let me enter it now,
Of
free
course.
will, right? Because, I see even like here, even having my children as mixed race. I'm a very observant person. I see sometimes maybe it's my upbringing of growing in South Africa, always having that in the back of my mind. Sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I see the looks. The looks. My grandmother always taught me, your eyes tell a story. If
Yeah.
you go into a space and somebody doesn't smile with your eyes, there's a disapproval there somehow.
Yeah.
But your eyes, even with the masks, or putting in context of today, people wearing masks, when somebody greets you or somebody interacts with you, like look at you right now, you're smiling, your
Yeah.
eyes,
Yeah.
right? The eyes tell us a thousand stories.
The soul of the body, the eyes, right? They say.
Exactly, right? So even if somebody doesn't acknowledge you with an open smile, with your open mouth, the smile says it all, that
Yeah,
this
man.
person is actually paying attention and this person is actually welcoming me, rather than, you know, you go to small towns and, the interaction is like biases, people don't know, or it's fear, like you said
Yeah.
earlier. People are afraid of what they don't know. But once you start talking to people, telling them your story, people are more open up and relax a little bit.
Yeah, no, indeed. Yeah, there's plenty of studies about that, and they do that a lot in the, which you could get misreadings a lot. They do that a lot in the, well, applies to what you just said, but also in detective work and criminology. They do, like, they do study like body language, and that's one of the, and also in psychology, neuroscience, they do a lot of it's, you can talk really techy stuff and sciencey stuff, but that's day-to-day life, and it's part, I believe it's also part of our survival, right? Just to learn to read the other one, to see if it's, whether it's part of us or it could turn against us. So yeah, that's it's like the like community wisdom.
Mm.
Yeah, you say your grandmother said that to you,
About,
about the eyes. You looked someone in the eyes. Was that your grandmother?
yeah, that's my grandmother. My
Yeah.
grandmother used to live here. She's since passed. Um, but she always taught me, always carry a song in your heart. Always smile with your eyes, or smile and mean it. By carrying a song in my heart, what she meant is, in life, you're going to go through hardships. Find a tune in your heart that you're going to hum to yourself when you see life has been difficult, and that will carry you through that day. So through hardship, carry a song in your heart. No matter, a song will get you through. That's what she meant. And music is very instrumental to me. If I may go back to what introduced me to music and samba nova, and paint you a
Yeah,
little picture here without going over.
we want to talk about that now.
Well,
That's beautiful. Yeah.
unless you have a scheduled
No, 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 no. It's all good. I think we were discussing about this because I find it's very, very very important in today's, in our today's life, and it's very important to see that perspective from you, coming from South Africa in the
yeah.
middle of the apartheid, and how
Mhm.
much we have to learn from you, and from what your home country went through, how much we need to pay attention and learn about that uh, uh, sad but real part of the history, for us not to repeat the same mistake again. So
Mm.
I think that's amazing, and I just like how you quoted your grandmother, because man, grandmas are like goddess, right? They're
Grandmas are very instrumental. Like, if
oh
I can sit and talk for 10 days about my grandmother, about, I'm getting shivers
yeah,
talking
same here,
about.
man,
But
same here.
going back to music, you have to understand, in South Africa during the apartheid, uh, music was used as a code, as a communication.
Hmm.
So if you research a gumboot dance, like most South African men work in the mines, in the gold mines. So
Hmm.
they wore boots, gum boots. It's a rubber boots, they call it in North America. There's a dance called a gumboot dance. I'll share the video with you sometime.
Yeah.
So gumboot dance, it was it became a dance. It became, but it was a communication between minors. When the boss, which was either the the white South African that's coming to a supervisor, by clapping one side on the side of your rubber boot, it's a communication between the workers. Hey, the boss is coming. Get back to work. And then it became a language. It became sort of in language, in music, that the master, so to say, in terms of to make it more understandable. It was a community. Let's say myself and you, or myself and another black guy working in the mines. If we saw you coming, we clap on the side of the boot, but it was a code to say, "Hey, somebody's coming," without him knowing. So music was used as a language to communicate as such. So not to run along too much, how music introduced. So people, music is a healer. Like, well,
Yeah.
they say everything is better with music. They mean that very well. Going back my university days, I fell into a depression myself. I couldn't go home. I didn't have the finances to go home to visit my family. So during this depression, I was lucky enough to see a psychiatrist or a doctor that was, wanted to talk to me about how I can get out of this depression, moving from South Africa at a young age, coming to Canada, not being able to go back to my country. I fell into a depression. He says, he tried some medicine, but I didn't like medicine. He said, I'm going to try to find a holistic way of dealing with things. How about you find something that you do that produces negative energy? Actually, you put negative, or I forgot how he described it. This doctor was from Nigeria. He
Nice.
said, find something that makes you happy, that you're gonna take out the negative but produce positive. He said, what about boxing? I'm like, boxing is violent. I'm not a violent person. He said, well, how about music? I'm like, music, what do you mean by music? He says, how about you're an African? How about drumming? Your people spoke through drums. It's like an ancestral thing. So find drumming. So I say, so in what context do you mean music or so you hit the drum, it produces. So you apply negative, right? If you want to interpret it that way, but it produces sound, which makes you much feel better. So I started drumming, and I found, I wouldn't say it was a fast thing to get me out of the depression, but I found something that made me happy. I listened to me. He says, try drumming and see. We'll talk next week. I met with him over time, and he decided to take me off medication altogether and say, well, it seems like you find your healing music. So drumming, and later on, while I moved when I moved to Nova Scotia, I joined a group, Samba Nova, and it's been a healing to me. And if you look at my Facebook, every Tuesday when we meet at St. Matthew's for Samba Nova, I termed that Tuesday Therapeutic Tuesday, because
Nice.
it has. I don't use that word loosely, because I know what I went through and what music has done in my life, and what. So it's a therapy in a sense of, that was my medicine.
It is. It is indeed, man. No, it's you brought me memories, because I found I was already playing music when I first came here, but the first years, finding a job and fitting in the society, missing home. I happened to be under like a difficult situation with the paperwork while I was working, but I was still waiting for some paperwork. So I learned that my grandmother from my father's side passed, and I couldn't go. I couldn't go home at that time. So it was really hard, right? And lots of struggles. And I that's where I started, like, recovering, like, music that I at the time didn't really play much. I was more into northern Spain music, and I started more connecting with the roots of Cuban music, and started hanging out with some musician friends that from Cuba, from Mexico, from other countries that they had a project together, and I kind of joined that project, and that's how everything started. After that, well, a lot has happened. I've gone through a couple of projects, and still like have my my own very very slow now with the pandemic and everything. And as I mentioned a couple of times, I decided to put for a name Plan Ache. And Ache is a Nigerian word that is very present in the Cuban culture. That it means it's the power to make the change happen. So I often like go to that as a reinforcement. The music that I do, but also as a reinforcement of this is what we need to take to make the change happen. You have to go for it. So yeah, no, that's very right, man. Beautiful. The other really good thing that really interesting aspect I wanted to ask you about with Samba Nova is the what do you feel about the community aspect of it, right? Because it's not just playing music by yourself. You're engaging into a community of people like that are drawn into the same style of music, and there's a lot of like polyphonic sounds happening at the same time. How's that? How do you interact with people? What's the feeling?
Samba Nova, it's like I say, and I'll say it again. It's my family. It's my second family. It's what brings me joy, and the people, the culture, the interacting. Like when I come, like it's Tuesday, once a week of practice. When I come from Samba Nova, I come renewed.
Yeah.
Like it's like I'm born again. You know what I mean? It's the culture that it's a group that's very welcoming, open hand, welcome to everybody. You don't need any experience to join Samba Nova. We're an open group. It's welcoming. We welcome. The pandemic has changed things, so it's very difficult, as you can imagine, to play through playing drums, percussion with movement with a mask on. But we have to, respect the rules of COVID until we get out of this. But Samba Nova is a very welcoming group. It welcomes anybody and everybody. We perform at different events, but as the pandemic, nobody's allowed to be performing anywhere. So we like in Nova Scotia that we can even actually meet and do practice, because some provinces you cannot gather at all.
Yes, man, and like, well, we're moving fast. Nova Scotia is, it's doing amazing. We're doing amazing with contention of the spread of the virus, but also we're moving along fast with the vaccination, and the summer is coming. So we have to continue to be responsible. But I hope that things are going to be much better in a few months. And just I wanted to ask you, for those that are maybe watching the program and they may not know about Samba Nova, can you tell us a little bit of Samba Nova, what it is?
Yeah, Samba Nova is a group that was formed by the late Matthew Kaiser. It's a Brazilian percussion group. It's mostly it's a group that was I came to Samba Nova. I've probably been since 2000. I forgot now, but I've been with them more than a decade now. And it's one of those groups that you don't need experience. It's welcoming. How could you go wrong? So the drums are there. You just have to show yourself. And then, the leaders are very graceful in the sense of they welcome, people from beginner and people that have been in Samba Nova, but some people have been there since the founding. There's a couple members, if I'm correct, that we just lost another member that was a long-term in Samba Nova. I think he played with the founder, but I think there's another lady friend of mine that met the founder, and there's a few people that were playing during the founder. So it's a group that has grassroots in Halifax. It's if you want to research it, you can just type in sambanova.org and do a little research and educate yourself. But we welcome anybody and anyone from any background.
It's beautiful, man. No, I love Brazilian music. It's so rich. It relates a lot with the Cuban music, and the the setting, the format that you have with Samba Nova, it will be like a, sort of an equivalent to what we call comparsa in Cuba. You know, that it's a group of drummers that they do a parade on the streets. That's very um, like more from the eastern side of the island, from Santiago de Cuba, in my home country, Cuba.
Mm.
And there's like, they do the la conga. It's like a sort of like a march where all these polyrhythms like take into place. I relate to that when I hear your music, and and the music that you represent from Brazil. I think it's amazing that you guys are doing that. And going back, you call it Tuesday, but it's in fact it's music is therapeutic for everybody, and more so when you're hands on that. The first podcast that I had, I actually had like a music therapist as a guest, and she's been practicing for a little over a year. She's a fairly recent graduate, and and they do some sort of like singing or a little bit of drumming sessions, and his music is well, for a long time, for centuries, has been known as therapeutic, but also more so in the last 30 years or so, it's been more taken into consideration in science and the health system. And so there, you're doing it as a community aspect, and it can only, yeah, the benefits of playing music, listening to music are like, you don't need to pay big, you don't need to pay big bucks for that. It's basically free, and more so with Samba Nova to join. I'm sure for you guys going through the pandemic, as this has affected us mentally big
Mm.
time, Samba Nova is probably like that's like your medicine to every week.
It's every week, every Tuesday, I go see my doctor, which is Dr. Sambanova.
That's beautiful,
I
man.
stay
Well,
awake
by the
from the
way,
start because Tuesday cannot come soon enough, right? That's where I get my recharge after a long week. And, I encourage people to listen to music, tap into that. And, we're in a pandemic. We're going through rough things. Everybody's going through some things, but carry a song in your heart. That'll be my closing word.
nice, man, nice. Yeah, no, I wanted to extend, to say hi to everybody, all the members of Samba Nova. That we've had some fun encounters when
Oh, no.
we
Oh,
used to.
sorry. Before I forget, I remember when you were doing your show at the market, you invited John Van Garp and Wilma Needham to join
and
at your group.
and yourself, yeah, you were there
Yeah,
too.
I was there. The three of us joined and we improvised. And you see, music is a beautiful thing,
Yeah, man, it brings that's how we should look at it, to bring everybody together, and feel good.
inclusive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, man, thank you for that. Lastly, I think we have to talk about your journey to being a DJ, and the musical influences that you chose to express through doing some DJing. Please feed us about that.
Yeah, the DJ journey, it's a long ongoing, and unfortunately we can't do that. We cannot dance, and I miss it very dearly. What brought me to DJing is I was, growing up in South Africa. We have such rich music from different, like South Africa. That we speak 11, there's 11 official languages, so you can imagine the influence of different cultures, different, I call it like it's like a melting pot, all those things coming together, all those rhythm. So I was missing that. I'm like, where can I go in Halifax to listen to music from home, or music, a world music? Because music is nobody owns music. Music is a world thing.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. You don't have to understand the language. You don't have to understand what they're saying. It's just let the rhythm move you, because even if you don't understand a certain language in a song, but if you look as a DJ now, I look at people, I look at people's feet. People are very reserved here. They don't want to dance, but I look at their feet. Their feet is tapping, so that's enough for me. They're dancing under the table, I call it.
No, that's
So
amazing. Mhm.
that's the reason I got into DJing. I wanted to introduce that to. I needed it for myself. I needed it to go to a place where that kind of music was played. So I said, let me start this platform. And I was a resident at 1313 Hollis
Yeah.
in Halifax. I had like 5 shows booked before the pandemic. I was doing a show called Afro Beats. So between 1313 Hollis, Gus's Pub on the North End, and there used to be a place called the Lion and Bright.
Yeah.
It's where I used to play, and it's like those things are missing, right? Like I'm afraid when the pandemic ends, if it's gonna be chaotic, people are just gonna be rushing the floor, and we're all gonna be sick again.
Hmm.
So
No,
it's
yeah, that
gradually will ease into it,
really,
or
really
we
good
could
concept.
approach the city and look for an open space outside. I did a show actually outside City Hall in the summertime, and it allows social distancing because we don't need to be inside. We can be outside and dance in a
Yeah.
field.
No, absolutely, man. No, you should probably set up like and do like a live,
Live
and it's
outside. Oh,
it's not the same, but
I know. It's something. It's something.
you're
Yeah,
gonna have a few of us watching for sure.
for
And
sure.
what is your music selection when you do your mix? What are is there any specific influences in the African beats that you use in the?
Yeah, I use the term loosely. Afro beats. Afro beats is a mix of music from Africa, different styles. It was Afro beats came out of a guy named Fela Kuti. Do you know? Have you heard of Fela?
I'm writing that down.
Fela.
Okay.
Fela. Fela
Yeah.
Kuti. Kuti. Fela Kuti. He's the founder of. He was a multi instrumentalist. He played different instruments, and all this new Afro beats that's come out, they pay homage to him because he's the founder of it. He put different stuff from different. He's a Nigerian born musician.
And he
So
turned it into electronic music.
not electronic. He was a musician. He's a like multi instrument, but Afro beats. It's now the new culture of the founder. Like he opened the way. It's then the new guys, the younger guys carried it through, and it's very lively. It's a music that's very happy. If you type in Afro beats, and you'll be overwhelmed by what you find
Yeah.
on YouTube.
I'll be dancing for sure. I have, of course. I
Yeah,
play
it's live. It's music
different
that's
playlists.
happy. It's a happy music. It's no cuss words, no swearing. It's just positive, energetic, feel good music, so to speak.
That's good, man. Well, we look forward that to things start to get better and to have you again, bringing your heart and music with the DJ. And yeah, like I can't wait to see Samba Nova again. I think that the multicultural festival is
Yeah,
coming again, and I'm sure they reached out to you, or they will.
but yeah, we are in there.
That's yeah, no, that's so necessary. So please, yeah, please everybody check out sambanova
Every
dot org.
Tuesday, or Samba Nova every Tuesday at St. Matthew's from 6:30 to 7:30 because of the
Yeah,
pandemic. Feel free to stop by, say hello when you see me on the street. I'll do the same, and you too, Marcel. Come to Samba Nova on Tuesday sometime when you have a chance.
we'll
We'd
do
love
that,
to have
man, for sure. Yeah, brother, thank you so much. I think I think we covered a lot today, and it's been quite a pleasure to have you. Yeah, we hope we can hang out sometime soon in reality.
you.
But yeah, no, it's been great. I learned a lot of things about your home country and views. Yeah, I just want, just in my head there's an idea going on, like 7 languages. How does your mind compute, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so, but the lucky thing is that some of the languages are very close to each other. But you got to remember, South Africa is 88 million people. For my
Wow.
city alone, Johannesburg, is got 4 million people.
Wow.
So people will say, "Oh, this is a big city." I'm like, okay, I don't, I don't.
Yeah, the biggest city in the Maritimes, and we
Yeah, yeah, no, it's but we all the same. We need to embrace each other and carry each other with kindness, and we can learn a lot from each other. That's all I have to say. If we
Yeah,
sit
man.
down and actually pay attention to one another, we can learn a lot from each other.
I agree with you, brother. Thank you for those words. Anyway, thank you so much, and I well hope to continue. Thank you for joining the podcast, and I hope to continue to learn more about your journey. Perhaps in the future, if you want to jump in again and do another session, we'll love to have you again.
We'll love that. Let's
Right
break
on.
bread sometime.
Absolutely. Let's do
I'm
it.
I'm a big meat eater, so invite me to a barbecue and I'm there. Wherever there's meat, I'm there.
Right on, man. Right on.
Cheers,
Well, please
man.
say hi to your family, and yeah,
Will do.
stay
And
safe, brother.
and you the same. Happy Easter.
Absolutely. Happy Easter, bro.
Carry a song
Cheers.
in your heart.
Will do.
All right.
Cheers. Hello, everyone. Well, that was our session for today with Khothatso Mokoena, and it was such a great journey to learn more about him and his culture and all the important aspects that he had to tell us that we all need to learn from, and let's keep on with that mantra of embracing each other and look at each other and understanding and being learning more about each other and being better. Thank you so much, Kotaso. And this is my first episode on a Saturday. I hope to keep it rolling. And yeah, thank you for sticking around. Please subscribe to my channel below. Is Marcela Mores. And thank you so much. I'll see you next week.